Hello everyone, my name is Kevin, otherwise known as Gordstrom on social media. I have a script that I'm keeping to because this is a couple of years old, so want to make sure that I'm sticking to it. I joined the Geekify Neopets tabletop RPG project in or around 2022 following a call for applicants shared within the Neopets community. I think it was on Facebook, if I remember correctly, when I originally applied. I was genuinely excited by the opportunity and eager to contribute at any capacity. At the time, I had been independently developing my own card game for approximately like a year and a half, I want to say, around then, and believed I had at least the experience and commitment to help the team to some capacity, whether it was doing something small like just a couple pieces of art or one idea or one land or one species or whatever it was. I just wanted to help the best I could, as I'm sure many people that applied did. Shortly after joining, it became apparent to me that while the enthusiasm was incredibly high across the team, many contributors, I count myself as included in this, were really early in their professional design careers or just journeys in general. But more concerning than experience level, however, was the clear absence of leadership structure and accountability. Yeah, it was. I'll continue reading. I don't want to add personal notes yet to that. Meetings frequently lacked agendas or clear objectives and were often dominated by extended personal anecdotes. By that, I guess a lot of times we'd have meetings that kind of just felt like waste of time, where people would just talk about their own stories, whether it was on Neopets or their history with playing the game or their pets and stuff, and showing pictures of their pets over and over, which I appreciate to some capacity, but while we're trying to design something professional, it does get to a certain point in a working environment where it's like, what are we really doing? So we do that without transitioning into anything like decision-making wise. We'd never really make any final decisions, or it never felt like we were making anything proactive happen at meetings. As a result, very little concrete progress was ever made during significant stretches of time. Most meetings kind of felt like, just why were we scheduling this? For most people that had normal jobs or were looking for jobs or whatever, we were setting aside time to go to meetings for reasons I'm not sure, because it didn't seem like anything was relevant other than to show what we were working on and that we were working on something, but it never really felt cohesive until we got to the part where we were working on land guides for each of the like Haunted Woods and Meridel and Maraqua and all the different lands and stuff. But that was the most cohesive thing I ever think we worked on and got as a team. From my perspective, the team often floundered, discussions looped without resolution, and some disagreements lingered without direction or, kind of trying to rein in what we should do there. And there was a consistent tendency to talk around problems rather than decisively address them. This lack of organization and leadership made it difficult for us to understand priorities, timelines, or expectations, and it significantly slowed all real progress. Yeah, there wasn't like a checklist of anything that we were working on. It was kind of just like, hey, does anybody have any ideas on what they want to do, what they're more experienced in? Because at the time we're all new contractual, contributors. So in order for John to get a feel for us, he kind of asked us what we all wanted to do, what we wanted to work on, what teams we thought we would be best fit for. So we all kind of separated ourselves and kind of just started working on anything. I don't really remember specifically in the beginning what we were doing. We were all kind of just doing anything. And then a couple meetings in, we decided to work on the land guides, and that's when things started to get organized. But even then, there weren't any guidelines to follow when we were doing that. It was kind of just like, all right, well, you're going to do this part, you're going to do this part, and you're going to do this land. And then hope everybody comes back to the table with a similar land guide. It's not like we were all talking to each other being like, oh, you're including this and you're including that and talking about this. We weren't doing that. We were all just gathering our own information on our own guides and writing it however we wanted, and then coming back and saying, here's the guide for the land. And then we'd show it on a share screen and see, have everyone look at it. Things didn't have any real guideline for us to follow, so everyone was kind of doing their own version of things, and I think the plan was later that we would make them cohesive. Kind of the make it and then make it good later concept. Make it first, make it good later. But don't know if we ever got to the make it good later part. So in a previous career, I had worked in management roles that required clear communication and facilitation and external representation of an organization. Man, that's a lot of nation things. In a previous career, I had worked in management roles that required clear communication and respectful communication, representing an organization on my behalf, like representing the company for transaction deals or buying and selling with different people. Motivated by a desire to help the project, I offered on several occasions to assist with structuring communication or acting as a clearer point of coordination or a lead. I wasn't trying to take any control of anything. I just wanted to discuss that things would be easier if we had someone representing as a point of contact for everybody on the team rather than having every meeting circle between 10 or 12 different people about what we're all individually working on, spending hours doing that, and then saying, all right, well, good job, everyone, keep working again till next week. I would have rather just said, hey, here's what the team's working on, here's what we want to know, and here's what you can help us with, John, from a management perspective of what we need to know, what we might need Neopets approval on. But I digress. I could go on forever and ever. These suggestions did not appear to be welcomed, so I stepped back and allowed the project to continue as it was being run, kind of, quote, without any management, really. I instead made positive relationships with several individuals that I worked with, but a small subset of the team who had assumed their own leadership hierarchy outside of John, kind of placing themselves as leads of certain teams and stuff, which wasn't uncommon for people to do. I've seen it happen before, but they actively just demonstrated hostility towards me, and I continued to feel like I was being alienated by them. I didn't press the matter. I kind of just chalked it up as the personal incompatibility. Like, you're not forced to like anybody you're working with. You just have to work with them. And I think that was kind of one of the problems of having a lot of newer, amateurish, fresh people from the industry or trying to get into the industry, is that it doesn't matter if you like people or not on the team. You have to be able to work with everybody on the team to some capacity. You don't got to be best friends, but you have to be able to cooperate. And there was a group of people who were not willing to cooperate, at least with me specifically. While much of my individual work was productive, one meeting in particular marked a turning point in my experience on the team. During a meeting with, I think, almost all of the team and John there, a team member became openly hostile. One of the people from the small subset stated that they would not allow themselves or others to be trampled over by a straight cis white male. I was personally kind of taken aback by the statement because I didn't really expect that was just what was said in a group in front of a bunch of people, but it was said. And the entire meeting went super silent, and we kind of all just sat there in it. But besides being inappropriate and irrelevant to the discussion or any discussion in a meeting, really should be handled privately, it was also factually incorrect. Not that my identity or personal preferences or sexuality or anything matters in a professional setting. The comment was based on assumptions that had been made about my identity that were unfounded. The individual had never taken time to speak with me in any meaningful way. They'd only ever heard me in group meetings and never talked to me individually that I can really recall. Yet chose to draw negative conclusions about me as a person based on presumed traits than my actual character. In short, they had decided who or what I was already and decided to discriminate against me because of it, and I found this just unprofessional, really. I don't, just stupid to do in a professional setting, where especially in something of this caliber. Not that we're the highest end spectrum of game creators, but it's a Neopets project, and we really want to try and do a good job for the community, because we are the community who got called in to do this thing. And kind of turning against somebody who's openly just trying to say, I want to help and I want to communicate with them and make everybody on the team feel like we're all being heard equally. At least that was what I understood my goal to be. Maybe that wasn't what other people were hearing, but that was what my goal was. So, just why would you say that to somebody who, at least mostly from, I would assume, every perspective, want to just help? But whatever, your choice. Several months later, mind you, I still worked on the project after that had happened, because I still wanted to work on the project, because I was like, this is cool, and I really want to have participated in something in Neopets history. The topic of contracts and compensation arose. When contracts were reportedly sent out, I watched other people confirming, like in the private Discord or on emails or group chats or whatever, about, hey, I got the thing and I signed it and I sent it back. I did not get one. While I did not raise this publicly, I requested a private meeting with John to discuss both the unresolved incident and my hope to move forward constructively. The conversation did not result in any meaningful follow-up at all, and the issues raised were not revisited. At that point, it became clear to me that I did not have a defined role, support, or contextual standing on the project, or contractual standing on the project, my bad. I ceased contributing and stepped away quietly. No one had reached out to ask why I had left or clarified my status. Communication simply stopped. I just stopped working on it. No one asked me anything. I didn't get a contract, so I assume you didn't want me there. Like, you had a problem with me. Someone else had a problem with me. No one wanted me there. Whatever. I didn't get a contract. Everyone else did. That normally means you didn't get picked. You just move on. So that's what I did. Kept working on my game, and then eventually got to where it is now. So I guess there is a silver lining. I was never formally compensated for the work, time, or effort I made into the project, which personally is fine by me, because at that point no one had been compensated for it. But right up until the point where the contracts come out, I don't get a contract. Everybody else gets a contract, even if it's only a couple $100, which I understand times 10 or 12 people is a lot of money. But to cut it right at that point and not give me access to money, it just rubbed me the wrong way. I'm not trying to say I was never paid for anything, but I wasn't, and I never got a contract. So I basically just worked on a bunch of stuff and then got cut. Woohoo. Did not feel that my well-being as a contractor was ever a priority to him. Like, whether I was having a good time or not didn't really matter, especially after the blow up. Like, I could see before that not really caring, because we're just normal people and there's no issues really. But when somebody says something like that in a public meeting in front of other people and nothing's ever really done about it, and the person who yells at me or says something like that doesn't have any kind of public backlash, or no one says anything and nothing ever happens to them, and they continue to work on the project while the other person leaves, just kind of weird. I didn't do anything, but I left the project because I didn't get a contract. The other person did do something and stayed on the project and got a contract and got paid. Yeah, to my knowledge, this person continued to work on the project for some time until they also had a falling out in a large fight with John himself. So whether it was with me or with John, the person's attitude seemed to be consistent. I want to address the broader narrative that's been brought up in a lot of different ways, placing responsibility for a lot of the delays on Neopets, like the actual Neopets team. Of course, Neopets has its own problems, and obviously we could sit here and talk about that for forever, but I don't think this is one. I believe it's important for Geekify and everyone in general to just be honest about internal realities. During the approximate 9 to 12 months that I was involved, the work was never close to for submission in any meaningful sense. No professional document I would have let out to go to Neopets to say, hey, here's what we're looking on, because it never looked like anything. It never looked like anything cohesive that you'd want to show them and say, hey, here's where we're at, because it was just mostly sketches and concepts and everyone's different ideas. We didn't have anything yet. The prolonged timeline, in my view, was significantly influenced by a lack of leadership structure, ineffective meeting management, unresolved interpersonal conflicts, and an absence of clear productivity and production accountability. Like, we never really had a pipeline. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what the overall scope was. We kind of started as, like, a 5th edition campaign module concept to, like, add on to people's Dungeons & Dragons stuff, and then we realized it could be more, and then I don't really remember on John's end how it went with discussions with Neopets, whether they were involved from the very early concept or weren't. I don't remember. That wasn't what we were being told, but I know that not having a bunch of people on the team work independently on their own versions of things, rather than having a structured layout of, hey, here's what I want as the team lead for a land guide or a species guide. Here's what we have to have. And then everyone goes out and assembles all of that for their own structured tasks. Whereas with this, it was, hey, pick whatever you want, do it however you want, we'll standardize it later. Which is a way to do things, but I do believe all of that is what contributed to this, getting to this point, to where it's at. To be clear, this experience does not reflect the conduct or capability of everybody involved. Several individuals on the project were competent, hardworking, genuinely invested in producing something worthwhile, and they all really wanted to try and care. That was, I want to, if I'm not going to name names, obviously, because like most of the team has come out and said, please don't talk about me. So I'm not going to. But everybody individually that I worked with was cool, except for the people who had a big blowout in front of the whole group like that. Everybody else really wanted to have a good time, was really excited every single meeting, unless they just rolled out of bed, which some people did from different countries, but even then they still had a good time, so at least in trying to work on something fun. I share my story, not to inflame tensions or assess personal blame, but to provide context, transparency, and an honest reflection of my experience working on the project. I hope that the project succeeds, in all honesty, but I personally do not think it should happen under Geekify. My experiences are not isolated in one-off mistakes or whatever. They are a symptom of something much larger that Geekify seems to have itself dipping its toes in over and over, of different controversies with different products and different things. A year and a half of me working there, or working on the project, and then 2.5-ish years of the Kickstarter and working on it during all that and after it was backed. This is what we have to show for it? That's just really disappointing. I kind of thought we would have had something much cooler. Like I said, I don't blame anybody on the team, because I think they're all trying as hard as they can on the things that they're individually responsible for or have ideas for, to try and make something cool while they have ideas for it. But when you don't have a management structure that supports you and makes you work on the right things, everything's got to go work in the same direction rather than independently. So thank you for your time. Again, my name is Kevin. I go by Gorshroom on social media things. If anybody wants to talk to me about this, I definitely lived it, so I'll be happy to answer any questions or anything. And again, I think I've said this publicly in the Discord. I don't have any ill will towards anybody on the team. 95% of them, and anybody that I ever interacted with, was cool, including John. He's a decently nice human being. He does talk to people with some form of respect. And other than that, I tried really hard to have cool ideas and have cool mechanics in there, and I'm very sorry that it ended up as a 5th edition clone. Or knockoff, not even a clone. I'm sure they do have cool things behind closed doors. I'm sure there are more cool things to see. But I, for one, do not think Neopets is at fault for no review process or not reviewing and looking at things quick enough. How could Neopets be at fault if this is what you have to show for it? This is what you have to test with, is the beta that's basically 5th edition? What's Neopets approving then? Like, it should have been a lot more. That's all. That's what I'm going to end it on.